Hey everyone, I'm Jason and welcome back to my series on the basics of becoming a UX and UI designer. I was going to start this video today talking about the theory behind UX and UI design, but I thought it would be more appropriate to go back even further to the basics of design thinking principles and the processes behind UX design before we jump into the actual UX design theories. So this video is really targeted at people that are interested in becoming UX designers or UX UI designers, but it's important for UI designers to also understand the design thinking process, as it really helps inform quality UI and UX designs. For those that don't know what design thinking is and the design thinking process, it's about developing solutions and products that are customer focused. So if you're a business, it wouldn't really make much sense to go into business or create a product that doesn't really address a need or solve problems for your customers. It also isn't smart to not understand who your customers are, because if you design a product or a business for a market that doesn't need your product or business, or for an unclear market, it's very unlikely that your product will be successful. So design thinking is used to tackle and understand big problems. It's a process that has simple, easy to understand steps that I'm going to break down in this video, but it's really important as a user experience designer to focus on the customer. After all, it's in the title, user experience. It's all about designing for the user and for the customer. So you should already be aware that user experience designers are really focused on customers. So you consult with people, you create wireframes and journey maps, you conduct tests, you analyze data and market research. And if you're focused on UX research as well, you'll be heavily involved in a lot of persona development and heavy market research. So let's jump into the steps of the design thinking process. So step one is to empathize. So that's learning about the user. Who are they? What is their problem? What do they do? So that's all about gathering data and really understanding your target market and your target environment that you're in. So typical activities in the empathize step involve things like user research. So maybe that involves sitting down and conducting interviews with people. Maybe you're asking them about a particular app, let's say eBay. You may ask them, when was the last time they used eBay? What did they use eBay for? Did they purchase anything? How did they pay? Overall, what was their experience with eBay? It's all about asking open-ended questions to understand exactly what and who and why the user is doing what they're doing. There are activities like empathy mapping, where you create a chart or a graph where you go through, what does that person say? What do they think? What do they do? And what do they feel? Usually that's based on a particular scenario. You may also conduct observations. Now that may be you asking someone to complete a task and you watching exactly how they do it, or it may be even more removed from that. Let's say you are researching how people use the library and what their interactions are like in a library setting. Maybe you sit in the library and you watch when someone walks through the door, where do they go first? Do they ask for help? Do they use any apps or iPads or things available? And it also involves research. So researching the market, the competitors, understanding from a more analytical point and data-based point, what are the stats and statistics and facts. Then you've got step two, which is the define phase. That's all about synthesizing all of the data and information you've learnt about the people, who they are, what they do, and defining the problem and the people in a specific way. So you need to understand, what are their needs? What are their wants? What are their challenges and their problems? So it's all about understanding and defining a problem. So if we use, once again, the eBay app, for example, and their people that have issues with the eBay app, you need to understand exactly who's having issues and what are the issues that they're having. You should be able to really clearly define a problem statement. So problem statements include the who, what, where, why. So who is experiencing the problem? What is the problem? Where does the problem occur? And why does the problem matter? It's important in this phase to question constantly. So using the 5 whys method, keep asking why, why, why. Some activities that you may use in this phase include personas. So that's a really good way to understand exactly who is using the product or your software, understanding their background, what do they do for work, what do they do for fun. If we use the eBay example, have they used eBay before? What's their level of technological understanding? What are they seeing, thinking, doing, feeling? You may also do customer journey maps, which is really important to understand the process as it currently is. So, do they go straight to eBay, or do they find the product through Google first? What happens when they visit the eBay page? What do they click on? What do they read? When do they add it to the cart? And do they go straight to the checkout, or do they continue browsing for other products? It's important to know exactly what they do currently before you can start working on solutions in the future. Which brings us to the next step, Ideate. This is all about developing potential solutions and ideas. So it's a good idea to start rough and broad and then to slowly refine your idea. There are a bunch of different activities you can do to come up with ideas and brainstorm, and some examples are the worst possible idea. And that's an activity where everyone throws out all these crazy ideas, which you may think don't have any merit, but may actually have some good thinking and ideas behind them. I can do a video on different processes and how to brainstorm and what these phases look like in more detail. Other ideas for activities may include rapid sketching. So you may quickly mock up some potential ideas of what the solution looks like. Really rough sketches on paper on a whiteboard where you can collaborate with other people and come up with some really interesting ideas. Then you should also do the idea customer journey. So in the previous step, you would have outlined what the customer journey is, but now it's to think about, well, what the customer journey should be. So if once again we use eBay for example, and we're talking about someone adding something to a cart, what should be happening when they click add to cart? Should they be taken to the cart, or should they be encouraged to continue shopping? Map out different journeys and try to understand exactly what the issue is and what the ideal workflow should be. Once you've come up with some ideas and you've refined them and you've got some mock-ups and sketches that are pretty rough, then you can go into the prototyping stage. And that's all about turning those ideas into prototypes. So these prototypes, depending on whether this is your first or second or third prototype, may be quite rough as well. So it could be a drawing done on a piece of paper. It could be low fidelity mock-ups done on something like Figma, or they may actually be high fidelity mock-ups that are interactive. The important thing to remember about the design thinking process is that it's a cycle. So you don't start and end, it's a constant journey of refining and designing and prototyping. So if it's your third round of prototyping, maybe you've already got an MVP product and you're refining that prototype. The fifth step is testing. So that's all about testing those prototypes that you have. Testing can be done in a variety of different ways, including usability tests, A/B tests, and observations. Depending on the scenario, you may provide someone with a task saying, can you find something on eBay and purchase it? And then you watch exactly how they do it. What are they interacting with? What are they searching for? Is it difficult or is it easy for them? You may also offer them various different designs through A/B testing. See how someone interacts with option A and see how someone interacts with option B. And remember, like I said earlier, it's a process. It never ends, it just continues to develop over time. So let's say you've done some prototyping and you've done some testing and you've learned from the testing that the prototypes need to be redesigned. That's okay. That's what the testing and the prototyping stage is for. So you'll go back, you'll refine your prototypes, and then you'll test them again. However, if you start to notice maybe in the testing and the prototyping stage that the solution that you thought of doesn't actually answer the problem, you may need to go back to the ideation phase. That's where you rethink your potential solution, make changes, and then go through and do the prototype and the testing again. Sometimes you may even need to go far back as the define phase. Maybe you've made some assumptions and realized that those assumptions aren't exactly correct. You may need to go back and redefine exactly what the problem is and who the people are. That's fine as well. The benefit of design thinking is that it's a great structure to understand how to solve problems, but it's also a continuous cycle. As UX designers, we understand that needs change, problems evolve, the market and people's requirements develop over time. So the design thinking process is a process that should be applied when starting new projects or when refining and rethinking existing projects and designs and applications. So to recap, these are the steps in the design thinking process. Number 1 is empathize. That's all about learning and gathering data. Second is define. That's all about synthesizing that information and defining the problem. Next is ideation. That's when you start coming up with ideas to solve the problem. Then you've got prototyping, which is all about turning those best ideas into prototypes, which can be tested. And then step 5 is testing. And although it's steps 1 through 5, you can do steps 1, 2, 3, 4, and then maybe you need to go back to step 3, or maybe you go 1 through 5, and then you need to go back to step 2. Hopefully this helps you understand exactly the process and thinking behind developing solutions as a UX designer. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below and I'll get back to you and try to answer them. And if you have any questions about maybe what the next video should be, please also let me know in the comments. Till next time, I'll see you then.